Hi, I'm Jamin Yi, and on behalf of my colleagues at Roehl Yi, welcome to another edition of our Money Manager interview series. A foundational part of our investment management strategy is due diligence. Our goal is to select great organizations and people to manage our clients' capital. I hope you get to know some of the managers we utilize and gain some perspective and insights on their respective strategies. This is the second part of our interview with Daniel Davidowitz, Portfolio Manager at Polen Capital. In the first part, we discussed Polen's large cap strategy, the current environment for growth investing, and their market outlook. In the second part, we discuss managing people in a results-oriented work environment, culture, Polen's investment committee, and getting to know Dan outside of the office. This interview was recorded on September 2nd, 2021. The views and opinions expressed here are as of the date recorded and should not be construed as an offer to buy or sell any securities. Such views and opinions may differ from those of Roehl Yi Investment Advisors and are subject to change without notice. So can you add some color on your investment committee meetings and how they're conducted and the process for how positions are added into your portfolio or removed?
Yeah. So our process is a pretty set process, and I won't use the term investment committee because that's not really the way that it works for us. But we have a team. Our large company team is 11 people. On the team, 6 of those 11 are also portfolio managers. So we're all analysts. 6 are also portfolio managers. And when a company is being researched, it starts with an initial research project. One analyst starts a company. It really only takes a few weeks worth of work to do the initial research. And what we're trying to find at that early stage is, what does this company do? How do they make money? What is the general industry structure, competitive structure? What's the big picture essentially? And we want them to, at the end of that few week project, just have a basic idea of the business, be able to describe it to the rest of the team, and whether or not we think it makes sense to go forward for deeper research. So we stop after that initial research project, right? The analyst will stop and present it to the rest of our team. And so when they present it, again, it's not to be the world's leading expert. It's just to say, this is what I know so far. And then to field questions from the rest of us, from the 10 of us who are new to the company, who may know something about the company, may know something about other companies like it or competitors. And so we kind of have more of a Q&A, more Q's than A's, but we have a Q&A session about the business. Once that's over and we decide, yeah, we still want to go forward with this company, the analyst then goes into more of an iterative deep dive. And so when I say iterative, what I mean is they're going to spend a lot of time, months, quarters, trying to answer all the questions that came up during the original presentation, anything else that they think is relevant. And they'll write research reports every quarter on the company. So, at least every quarter, bringing us up to date on what they're learning, questions that we had that they can now answer, and putting all the pieces of the puzzle together. Our team is also a very collaborative team. So chances are it's not just the one analyst working on it anymore. There's probably 2, 3, 4 or more people working on it. We don't cover that many companies. So if one of them is interesting, there's going to be a few people working on it. And then once we feel like the analyst feels like they have enough information to represent it to the group, they will. Now, this is often months and months, if not more, after that initial research project. And when they come back, they're going to do a more detailed presentation to the group that hopefully answers all the questions that we had the first time around, and we're going to discuss it around the table. And that may happen once, it could happen a few times until we feel like we have enough information. Once we've, kind of exhausted ourselves on that, nobody votes at that. We don't, our research team does not vote on anything. Separately, the portfolio managers, and each of our products has 2 portfolio managers, a co-PM structure. The 2 portfolio managers separately will decide whether or not we're going to add a company to the portfolio or not. And if we are, do we have to make room by selling something? So it's really up to the co-portfolio managers to figure out if we think that, yes, this is indeed one of our best ideas for the portfolio, and what does it do for the portfolio construction, portfolio risk, how much do we want to buy, that kind of thing. So it is a fairly long process. I think the fastest I've seen a company go from initial research to the portfolio is about 8 or 9 months. Usually it takes a bit longer.
And then what's the time frame usually when you're going to exit a position?
It depends on the reason we're exiting. So if it's more because the valuation is becoming a little less attractive, we could slowly work our way out of it. It may take a while to work our way out of it. If it's something that we think there's a real risk to the competitive advantage, which does not happen all that often, we're going to do it quickly. So we've had a couple of times in my tenure where we've exited relatively quickly within days. But typically it's not that fast. Typically it's a really kind of slow replacement where we pull one out and we bring another one in.
All right. So just shifting gears to your firm and culture and managing and leading. Now, it's my understanding that Polen Capital has embraced a results-only work environment.
Yeah.
And I was hoping you could share how you adopted that culture and how it's utilized today.
Yeah, so the results-only work environment, or ROE, is the way we call it. It was invented by these two women who worked at Best Buy, in the HR department at Best Buy, and basically realizing that a lot of the way that people were managed is terrible. And not very well adapted to how businesses should operate today. And they wrote 2 books on it, one called Why Work Sucks and one called Why Managing Sucks, both very well titled books. And our CEO, Stan Moss, had read, I can't remember which one of the 2, and sent me the book. And I read it and I loved it too. And we both realized that we were kind of moving in this direction already of not managing people, but managing their work. Right. So trying to say, let's agree on results. And this is what ROE is about. Let's agree on results that we're going to measure, and not about whether or not you're, sitting at your desk every day between these hours. And, if I don't see you, you must not be working. Like, let's just focus on the work. As long as the work is getting done, it's getting done at a high level. That's what's important. So a lot of people think of ROE as kind of a remote work thing, that it was a work, especially pre-COVID, they used to think of it as kind of a remote work thing. That's not what it is. ROE is, I trust you as a manager, that if we agree on a set of results, you're going to deliver those results. And if for whatever reason you can't, we'll try to figure out what the root cause of that is, and we'll try to, recalibrate. And if it doesn't work, we'll help you find another place to work. And so we went to that kind of model of managers have to trust their people, that they're doing the right thing as long as they're meeting the results. And from everybody else has to trust that the managers are going to do the right thing too, that they'll be rewarded for doing good work, that they have advancement opportunities, all of these things. And so we adopted that. This is probably now 5 or 6 years ago. And it's been a really big benefit to us. So there's no guilt if you decide not to come into the office one day, or if you want to leave in the middle of the day, or whatever, you can do that. We have this belief that our people should be autonomous, and they work very, very well into that. It's basically treating adults like adults, and it works extraordinarily well. The downside is you got to be fully committed to it. You can't do a half a row. You're either all in or you're not. We've had a lot of investment firms call us to say, how did you do this? We would like to do it. And I can count the number on one hand of firms that fully went through with it, because it's very, very hard. If you're not used to trusting your people, you're gonna have a hard time trusting your people, And so I think we've always been in the mindset of our people are good people, have earned the right to be trusted, do great work, and we're just gonna let them do it. And so it really works well for us. We've gotten very high marks. All of our people love it. And so it's become part of our culture.
That's fantastic. So I did recently read the book. So can you just share, my understanding is like meetings are voluntary. They're not mandatory, right?
All meetings are optional, yeah.
So share some insight on that and how that works.
Well, really, everything's optional, right? The mandate is you have to get the results that we agree upon, right? If I'm your coach, your manager, and we say, these are good results that we want to be held to, you have to get there. Now, if you can get there without going to meetings and without being in the office or whatever, great. That's the work that I'm looking for. If you can't, then you should probably come to that meeting. If it's part of getting the results, then you should do it. So yeah, all meetings are optional, but you can't just like turn your brain off and go away. Like you have to be responsive. So, this is a dynamic business that requires, high touch client service too. So if I need something, I need to be able to get a hold of you or your proxy. So if I need something right away, I have all these different technology ways of getting to you, right? We all have, we have, messaging capability, we have video conferencing capability, we have all of these things. So if I need to be able to get a hold of you, great. If I can't get a hold of you, if you're unavailable, that's fine too. You just have to have somebody else that's available, so that we can always get work done. That's important. You can't just say, I'm not going to do work and I'm not going to be available. But yeah, you just have to be able to be responsive or have somebody else be responsive. So we meetings are all optional. There's no such thing as paid time off, vacation days, sick days, any of those things. If you don't want to be here, don't be here. There's no problem. We're not going to measure any of those things. We're not going to tell you can only take 10 days off a year. You take as many as you want, as long as you get your work done, or have somebody get it done for you. We're good, and so it's a little bit of a shift in mindset, but when you start to do it, it makes sense. And when you think about how arbitrary it is to say, all right, this is a knowledge-based business, right? And so there's 11 people on my team. And how weird would it be to say, I want you to study up on the companies in your coverage universe, but you have to do it between the hours of 8:30 a.m. and 5:30 p.m. in this little 10 by 10 box that I've set aside for you. Well, that's kind of arbitrary, right? It doesn't make sense, right? This is not an assembly line where workers have to be, in the right place at the right time. This is a knowledge industry. Some people work really great in the morning. Some work really great in the evening. Some work well in an office structure. Some don't, so how do we do it? We figure out ways to make everybody work at their best level and then set up great technology to bring people together when it makes sense to bring people together. So that's kind of what it all is. But look, it's a mindset and it's a lot of work to make sure it gets done right.
So culture and fit is an important part of our firm's due diligence process. And you mentioned trust in Roehl, but I was just wondering if you could expand more on the culture of your firm.
Yeah, we've touched on a couple of parts of it already, right? And Roehl is a part of it. But when we think about the culture of Polen Capital, we think that we're here for really three sets of people. One, we're here for our clients. That's number one. Everything that we do is with a client first mentality, and not just delivering results that they expect. And I'm not just talking about investment results, client service, not just what they expect, but going way above and beyond what they expect. So we believe in doing the right thing. We believe in doing a lot more than expected. We believe in being world-class in what we do, even though we're not a large firm. So being there for our clients and delivering the above expectations for them is number one. Number two is being there for our people, right? The employees of Polen Capital. We want them to be able to, I mentioned autonomy, right? To be autonomous, to strive toward mastery, and to have purpose in what they do. And so autonomy, we kind of touched on already. Roehl is a big part of autonomy. Mastery is we want them to get better and better at what they do every day and just to become better people. They don't necessarily have to always become better at their specific job, but to be better people. So we provide a training budget every year for every employee. It's $5,000 per employee per year that you have to use. You don't have a choice. You have to use it, and you have to let us know what you're using it for, but you can use it for pretty much anything. So we've had people use it for languages, learning languages, for going to conferences, going to take classes at colleges, for public speaking, for you name it. There's been a huge, for coaching, for career coaching. We've had people use it for tons of different things, and not all of them are directly applicable for their jobs. But we think if people are becoming better as people, then Polen Capital benefits and our clients benefit from that. So that's how we strive toward mastery. And then purpose. Everything we do, again, back to the client. And then also our third pillar, which is our community. We have offices down here in Boca Raton, Florida, which is where I am, in Boston and in London. And we want to be the best partners to our community that we can be. So some of that is accomplished through financial, donations from Polen Capital, but a bigger part of it comes from our own people volunteering and making big impacts on their local community, as I'm sure you guys do as well. And so, our firm culture is really built around all of those things. And then in each of those pillars, in client, in our people, in our community, there's a whole bunch more underneath there. And so a part of it is, and a part of our culture that's important too, is the way we communicate with each other. We believe in the concept of radical candor. There's a really good book on that too. And radical candor really is two things. One, you should really care about your colleagues, care deeply about them. And then number two, be very honest with them. And there's a way, you have to have both of those. You can't just be brutally honest with people without caring about them, or else it's really going to be damaging. And you can't really care about people but not be honest with them either, right? So these things go together, and it helps people grow, right? So if you really care about your teammates, like I think Polen Capital people do, and you see something that you can say to one of your teammates to give them good feedback, constructive feedback, and help them get better, it really is in your best interest to do that. I'm a person who always had trouble giving constructive feedback. I don't like hurting anybody's feelings. But what I realized through this whole process of radical candor is, by withholding that information, you're then you're denying the ability for your colleagues to get better. And so it's important to be able to give real feedback, but only if you really care about your colleagues. If you really don't care about them, it's gonna be a hollow exercise.
Radical candor. So just shifting gears a little, it's my understanding you studied public health in school.
I did, undergraduate, yep.
Can you just share what you learned in school that could be applied to the current world we live in today?
Well, I did take one epidemiology class, so I feel like I'm an expert on COVID because of that. I took one epidemiology class, and I had heard the term herd immunity many years ago. So it's that's about probably as much as is applicable today. But in public health, when I did take a public health major, I was at Rutgers University, and the avenue I was really pursuing was more in hospital administration. So it actually was more business oriented at that time. And so my first introduction to accounting and finance was through public health, actually. And at that time, it was more the finances of hospitals and how they worked, and health systems and how they worked. So I wouldn't say there's a lot of direct applicability of public health to what I do today, other than I got the kind of bug as far as, the business side of how things work. And then, we do invest in companies in healthcare, all different types of companies in healthcare. So I do have a lot of experience because I was a public health major. I also worked in hospitals for 6 years after I graduated. So I have a pretty good idea of how the health system works in the United States, and a healthy dislike for it because I've seen it from the inside. So I know some of the risks of investing in different parts of the healthcare sector as well. So a little bit of applicability, but I wouldn't overplay that.
So as you reflect back the last 18 months, what have you learned about yourself professionally and personally?
I think some of the things I've learned are, one, there's a lot of things you'll never be able to predict, right? I think we kind of knew that before, but when you see a global pandemic, and then, so that alone was shocking, right? The how broad this is and how important it is. But also to see how the stock market just kind of powered through it. I would not have, if you had told me there was going to be a global pandemic, I would not have predicted, what happened in the stock market either. So understanding that your predictive ability is a lot lower than whatever you think it is, and your ability to assess probabilities is lower than what you would think it is. So it's a humbling experience to go through that. I think it also validated the way that we invest, though, that we kind of opt out of making those predictions and just try to find companies that will thrive regardless. I think that proved out pretty well. I think also just being very open, because one of the things that I realized is there's so many opinions about so many things. We always knew this, right? But COVID's a great example of it. And you can learn a lot by listening. It doesn't mean you have to agree with what's being said, but you can really learn a lot by listening hard and making your own decisions. But I think maybe I was a little too strong in my own opinions, before this, and now I'm learning a lot by listening a lot more. And so I think that's been, something that I've learned along the way. Probably stuff that I should have learned a long time ago, but certainly learned now.
The listening and the empathy. Let me know when you figure that one out.
Yeah, it's a work in progress.
So outside of work and family, what's your favorite activity?
I'm kind of a fitness buff, so I work out a lot. I run a lot, and so I spend a lot of my time not at home or not here in a gym or running outside. And to me, it's a great way to clear your head. And it's good. It's obviously very good. It's healthy. I'm not getting any younger, so I'm trying to fight time and gravity a little bit, and I find it fun to do. So I really do a lot of that.
All right. And are you an iPhone user or an Android user?
I am an iPhone user, although I do hate being locked into the ecosystem, but yes, I'm an iPhone user.
Okay. So what's your favorite app to track the markets?
I don't track the markets through any app, actually.
Okay.
In fact, I don't. It's funny because my dad used to ask me, or my father-in-law would ask me, what the stock market do today? And I'd be like, I don't know. I didn't pay attention to it because we really don't look at it on a day-to-day basis. So I don't really use any apps for finance, but my favorite app in general, and it just goes back to my running, is my Garmin app. I have a Garmin watch. I'm not advocating for the stock, but I have a Garmin watch and a Garmin app that gives me a ton of data. I'm a little bit of a data person, even though we're fundamental investors. I love good data, and so when I look at my app, I get some really good feedback from my workouts and my runs and stuff like that. So that's probably my favorite app.
Nice. And have you looked at the Whoop app or the Whoop band?
I haven't. I know friends who have it and they love it, but I haven't yet. No.
All right. So some other quick last questions. Do you read the physical newspaper or digital?
I read mostly digital newspapers, but I do love the physical paper. So I because of just the number, I read 3 or 4 different newspapers or news websites every day. And so just having all that paper wouldn't be very smart or very ESG. So I don't, but every once in a while, the Sunday paper, I still get the paper version because I'm kind of nostalgic for that.
Do you have a favorite newspaper? If you had to pick one.
Ooh, I guess if I had to pick one, I'd pick the New York Times. It's been probably the one I've been reading the longest. I do love the FT. I do love the Wall Street Journal. And I read Bloomberg online. I read all of those online, but I think if I had to only get one, it would probably be the New York Times.
Okay. So food section or entertainment section?
Oh, food section for sure. I should have mentioned that as my, besides fitness, one of the other reasons I do run a lot is because I love to eat a lot too. So I have to have that balance.
Nice. Live sports or binge watch a TV show?
I love both of those things. I do love live sports, but I do admittedly spend a fair amount of time on Netflix too.
Is there a show you would recommend?
Yeah, there's a lot of them. My favorite at the moment, though, if you really want kind of a feel-good type show that's very enjoyable, is Ted Lasso on Apple Plus TV.
You're really hooked into the Apple ecosystem.
Yeah, I really am, and I don't want to be. I didn't even want to get Apple. I only got Apple TV just for Ted Lasso. That was the only reason I got it, and it's a feel-good kind of show. I really love it. There's a lot of good dramas and stuff on Netflix that I like too, but yeah, I think Ted Lasso is like my favorite at the moment.
All right, that's on my list. Well, thank you very much for the time today.
Sure, Jamin. Thank you. Great questions. I enjoyed it.
All right.
Have a great one.
I hope you enjoyed today's interview and gained some perspective and insights on Dan and Polen Capital's investment strategy. We look forward to sharing future money manager insights.